Welcome to Building Insight. I am your host, Quentin Glenn, alongside my co-host, Amy Mareko.
Hi.
We have a very special guest today. He is the CEO and founder of Watson Installations, The Flooring Pros, and my boss, Jason Watson. Jason, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
Welcome.
Yeah. All right. Well, so how am I doing overall? Like, would you give me an A plus? Like what? No. So
You're doing very well. Feeling very comfortable here.
So, obviously this podcast we started to, with the person in mind of like, how do we get, somebody who's young, who's up and coming, how do we develop them into, a leader in the industry? And, here you are, a leader in the industry. So, the big thing that I want to talk about today is, how did you get to where you're at right now? What are the key pieces that got you there? And, how can, if I'm talking to my little brother who you've met, like, how do I, pave the path for him to, to grow into something like this? Mm-hmm. So, if you could just kind of walk us through what your story is, how'd you get started in the flooring industry, and, what's motivated you to, to keep on pushing?
Yeah. So those are a lot of great questions. It takes me way back to when I started the business right out of high school, basically in 1994. Wow, you weren't even born.
Yes, I was.
Were you?
Yeah.
So it's a long time ago, right?
Why am I saying this?
Are you? So yeah, 1994. My dad was an installer, mm-hmm. right? So at the time, growing up, very poor, not having much. The motivation for me at the time was I needed to make money to mm-hmm. pay bills, basically, for my mom. Like that was the driving thing for me. It wasn't, I didn't know flooring at the time. I didn't know it was become a passion of mine. So the motivation was I just needed to work, and school was not my thing. Then I needed to do something quick. So I've kind of always had an entrepreneur mindset, from washing cars and vacuuming homes and
Didn't you sell candy?
I sold candy in school, like literally my 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year. I carried no books. Always had several Amy's around taking care of my homework.
You wouldn't want me to do your homework.
You definitely want me to do it. But yeah, I had that, thinking back at where I'm at today, thinking back of, I was really like just naturally, I think, like that, where I just thought differently than most other kids, mm-hmm. probably out of necessity, because I was always trying to figure out how could I make money to pay the power bill so that we didn't wake up in the dark. Like that was literally, as a kid, that's, there was many nights to where that was the case. Mm-hmm. You didn't, you didn't have power, right? And, or food. So that was the drive. And then once I got into the business, I fell in love with the trade. Like I was obsessed with, at the time it was sheet vinyl flooring. And, I would practice like every night, because my dad wouldn't let me cut on the job. Like he would, for 2 or 3 years, I was sweeping and picking up trash and loading the van, unloading mm-hmm. tools and organizing the project, but couldn't actually do anything, cutting the material, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you mess up sheet vinyl, like one cut, the whole job you got to replace the whole job. There's no ordering a square or a piece like wood, right? Right. So I became obsessed with that. Really wanted to learn. Then it was more about that than it was the money. But I went to actually, I was 18. I remember I took a bus to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It was like an 18-hour, I think, trip, and I went to Armstrong's school, vinyl school. It was 2 weeks long. Mm-hmm. Everybody there, their companies paid for them to be there. I was the only one there, I think, that actually paid myself. And I remember my dad telling me how stupid I was for doing that, right? And it was the best decision I ever made, because when I got back, for one, I thought I was going to know how to actually put floors in. That definitely, you can't go and take a school or a class or read a book and actually put floors in professionally, mm-hmm. right? I thought that's what I was going to do. Didn't happen. Actually came back. I was putting a bathroom in, miscut the bathroom, the whole job, and I was like so embarrassed. I remember where I was at. And my dad had to come in and redo the bathroom, mm-hmm. right? Because this is, and like your confidence like starts messing with you then, right? So I became obsessed with more, right? And I just was practicing every night. I would take the scraps from each project and he would get mad because he was like, oh, I can sell this as a side job, right? As we do today. And I would take all these products back and I would put them in the bathrooms and I would cut the walls up and the baseboards up and cut around toilets and do all these things to practice that craft. But going to that school, it's kind of like getting a degree, right? Because I'd met a lady and I took this piece of paper in and I was like, I want to get on board with Home Depot, which at the time, my dad was like, they don't pay anything. Like, Home Depot and Lowe's wasn't big then like it is today for install purposes. But I went in and showed her this paper, and she gave me an opportunity, all because she saw the commitment that I had made at a young age to go and take this course and come back and present, right? And so I started doing installs for Home Depot and started making really good money doing that. And then later, got on with Lowe's. And it's been a fun ride. I miss actually installing because when you install floors, you get satisfaction. When you run a business, it's like there's always a problem and a challenge. So that sense of satisfaction, like it's hard to keep that, right? Because when you do a floor, you can step back and the customer's happy. And you're like, oh, I did this.
Yeah, there's a particular square footage in front of you. You knock it out, it looks good. This person smiling. But, when you're running a larger business like you are today, it's, where's the next hole that we need to plug, or what's the next, endeavor that we need to jump on? And it's kind of just never stopping.
So once I got on, Depot and Lowe's, and I started, I was doing all these installs. I was working, 7 days a week, and that's all I wanted to do. Like I wasn't going out with, friends or doing things that other people I knew were doing. Like I was always like, I would work a residential job, and then I would go do a builder new construction at night. I would turn my van lights on. I would shine them on the house, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. Did this every night until I just couldn't work anymore. And I was making really good money, right? Again, my mindset at the time was I needed to make money to take care of my mom. Like that was the motivation. And so it's like I couldn't get enough. It's like I didn't want to take a day off. I felt like I was losing. So I just did it 7 days a week as long as I could do it. And it got to the point to where I started having knee and back problems. There was no skin on my knuckles. Back then, my knees, like, they were pink, like hot pink. Like,
did you wear the pads?
Yeah, most of the time, but sometimes not. But again, I would crawl around for 16, 17 hours every day, and so you're like, I don't, look like that now, but there used to be no skin on my knuckles and my knees. But I started having back problems, and this is when I was doing everything myself, right? Because I was so like a perfectionist. I didn't want anybody doing my prep work or anything. And so like, I remember like getting to a point where I was like in so much pain that I would go to a chiropractor, and I would trying to fix my back. And I remember him telling me, he's like, son, if you don't do half of what you're doing, you're not going to be walking. Like he said, you need to figure out how to do half of what you're doing. It's first vacation I ever took, because he's like, you need to like just take off and like go rest your body. And I was young. I was in my 20s, right? And so I remember going home, and I'm like in the bathtub, and I'm thinking about all this. And I don't even think anybody knows this. I was such in pain, and I kept, getting up and doing it. And then I was like, man, I got to get other people to do this. Like, you can't scale unless you can duplicate your efforts, right? So it's what we're doing today in business. It's like, okay, now I need to go out and find people to help me do this thing and teach them so they can do more floors, so that I can do, instead of 1 floor a day, I'm doing 2 floors or 3 floors or 4 floors. And so then I started hiring people, right? And went through a bunch of people. Americans, like, they could not work with me because the first day I'd work them till like 1 o'clock in the morning. They wouldn't show up the next day. Like, and I would do it intentionally. And then I started meeting some Spanish guys. Ricardo Santos, he didn't do stuff for us now, but this guy, like, didn't speak any English, didn't know anything, but he would stay on the job with me until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. He would work 7 days a week. And I'm like, that's my guy. So I started him, and then I started hiring more Spanish workers, because the Americans, again, they didn't want to work. They wanted to get paid more, and they wanted to work less. And I'm like, and they wanted weekends off. I'm like,
not for me.
This is not just what I'm doing right now, because I literally just wanted to put floors in. Like, loved it. Like, absolutely loved it. Like, obsessed with all of it. You know what I mean? So started building out the team, and at one point I had like I think 7 or 8 trucks, and they were all hourly, people. And then that became like, then next thing you know, I'm not installing, I'm running around like doing estimates, sales, and then handling the problems, like driving from Mooresville to Rock, like doing all that. So I didn't even have time to put floors in now, which is what I loved, but I was scaling my efforts. And so, then we just started growing and adding on more. Then we started subcontracting out after that, because like, I don't have enough hourly help. We start subbing out, different things. And it was just, I think sheet vinyl and laminate flooring at the time, right? When Pergo laminate first came out, where you had to glue the seams together, you had to use straps. Like, you guys probably never seen it, but like it wasn't like it is today, where just snap and go. Mm-hmm. And the hardest part was cleaning the floor at the end, because you had glue all over the floor.
Oh, yeah.
And you spend 2 hours cleaning the glue. And then if you miss a spot and the light didn't hit it a certain way, like you'd be back at the customer's house getting glue off the floor. Right. So we did that, and then from there, I knew I wanted to grow more than that, because I was doing like a lot of the depots, sheet vinyl. I was like, well, how do I start getting the carpet? I knew nothing about carpet, by the way. It's zero. And I went in and I said, I can do carpet. I couldn't even measure carpet at the time.
It's hard.
And so there's like, well, you don't have a warehouse. I'm like, I know. I'll get one. And so that didn't work. So what I did to get on with Lowe's, like, this is a real story. Like, there was a guy, he's no longer here, but this guy named Bill, I'd go into the Lowe's, during the day, and usually I'd be in like, I would look dirty. I was an installer, I'd go in there and get supplies. So I would keep a spare clothes in my car, and I would put my slacks on to go into Lowe's. And I'd go back there to his office, and he'd be like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, man, I got my teams out here getting stuff. It was me. Mm-hmm. I'd already got it and loaded it up. I just changed clothes and come back in so he could see that I have a team. Mm-hmm. I got a warehouse. Went out and got a warehouse on my own. First warehouse. I paid for it. No one told me to get one. There was no carpet. There was no work. And I signed this lease to get this warehouse in Mint Hill. And I came in and I was like, hey, I got my warehouse here. Just so you know, I got carpet and we're ready to go. I got pad. I didn't have anything. And then next thing you know, I start getting POs for carpet. And I'm like, I got to find some carpet crews. And then started finding carpet crews. And then next thing you know, it's like, I was the guy that would answer the phone 7 days a week. You need a measure done, you need a job done, I'd figure out how to get it done. I would find people, like, I'd just find them. Yeah. Somehow I'd find carpet guys. Then we started doing tile and, everything else. And then it just started to, grow from there. And then we got on with Lowe's. Actually, he was with Lowe's, but before that was Home Depot, then went to Lowe's. But yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, the highlights of how that worked and how I guess the point of it is like taking initiative, right? Which I'm big on, like, just do the thing that I feel that I need to do in my heart, and then everything else will follow, instead of waiting on someone to tell me to go do the thing and then they'll give me the thing, because most of the time it doesn't happen. But when you're prepared and you believe it, like, it comes to you, right? Because I had already manifested that whole, visualized me having a warehouse, me having a forklift, like, because I went out and bought a forklift and I didn't have any carpet. Like, I didn't even know how to measure carpet.
Right. Well, I think it also, you brought up a couple points that, like, I can relate with as, having owned businesses in my past. First and foremost, you fell in love with the craft, right? You obsessed over it and, got better at it each and every single day. Mm-hmm. And the manifestation piece, like, I mean, when you're talking about keeping clothes in the back of your truck, I mean, that's what I did when I started my recruiting business. I mean, I didn't have a truck, but, I dressed super nice for my, client presentations. It's, I always talked about me and my team. Mm-hmm. My team was me. But, speaking with that confidence and, having confidence in yourself because you loved what you were doing, it gave off the, it made the people on the other end of the table feel comfortable with, like, hey, I'm in good hands right here. Right. And, when I first approached you, my business working with your business, I had 3-4 people on my team. But you and I clicked because, you could feel those same things that I was trying as a young business owner, trying to push out to you, right? Like, this guy's going to answer the phone every single time. Like, I made it a point to where, I was living in Arizona, you were living here in North Carolina at the time. My work day started at 4 a.m. because your work day started at 7 a.m. So I'm up, I'm ready to go. If Jason Watson's name jumped up on my phone, I don't care what I was doing. I was answering that phone call, right? If it was Austin or Amy or anybody on there, like, I would strategically be sending the first email for everybody every single day, right? Just so that everybody knew it's like, okay, hey, I'm in good hands. And, as relating back to your story, as you're, growing and scaling your business, that relationship with Lowe's and Home Depot, you needed that to be known to them because that's the vehicle for your growth. And then as you start to scale up, and I'm going to ask the question, I'm not going to answer it for you, but, your love for your craft had to pivot, right? Like, you weren't installing floors as much anymore. So, how did that evolution work for you? Did you start to fall in love with the business side of things? Did you, kind of walk me through that?
Yeah, I think obviously I had the love for the craft, but then I also had a love for, like, making sure that the customer was happy. Like, I've always kind of been a fanatic about, and it was because I was really good at what I did too. I mean, I had really good confidence. Like, I could do any job anywhere. Like, I don't care what kind of material it was. Like, I could do it. But having that care for the customer side of things, I think, is what really, jumping back a minute, gave me the opportunity with the warehouse. It wasn't the fact that I just had the warehouse. It was the fact that they knew, that everybody knew, that if Jason got the call, I was going to solve the problem, period. And that's what got me the opportunities to do carpet and other things, is because I cared more than probably most of the people they were dealing with. And I think they saw that in me, and being that I was young too, which is different. And I think that's why I got the other opportunities I had, because I really, really cared about the customer. And then I was instilling that into the guys, that were working for me at the time. And I wasn't easy to work with, right? Definitely a lot harder to work with back then. But it's because I had a standard, though. I wasn't like, there was not going to be a shortcut. You're not going to take a shortcut in the closet, because I inspect closets. Like, I just wanted everything to be as perfect as it could be, because I was there to deliver the outcome for the customer. Like, and that's really what I cared about. It wasn't the money. Like, I was making good money. It was, I got more satisfaction as of the customer telling me, like, they're extremely happy with me. That was my goal every single time. So getting back to what was your original question? I'll make sure I'm answering it correctly.
Yeah, I mean, it just, transitioning from, I am doing everything.
Oh, yeah.
To, now I'm running and scaling this business. Like, again, I know for me, right, I was in recruiting. I loved finding people jobs, and I thought I was the best recruiter on planet Earth. Was I? Probably not. I learned from a lot of great people, but, once I started to scale out my business, I started to fall in love with, again, like, it's what you're talking about with customer obsession. Like, I was obsessed with, is Watson's happy with my work, right? And, to one of your earlier points, I was tough to work with, right? I had expectations for the people on my team that, this is how I would act. And one of the things I struggled with was being able to, like, push that down to my people, right? Now, I didn't scale to the size that Watson's has scaled, but, finding that line and going from actual producer to, manager, finding the right people, managing a strong business, like, that's a completely different craft that you have to fall in love with, right, in order to be successful. And it's something that you've navigated well. So, like, how did that piece work for you, right? Like, how did you go from, like, hey, I'm a fantastic installer to like now I need to be a fantastic business owner, because those two things aren't always the same.
Well, I wasn't very good at leading or doing those things because I was such a doer back then. Like I wanted to literally like do everything myself. But I started to realize like there's only so far you're going to go when you do everything yourself. And then the people around you actually, they're not empowered to make decisions. Like then they start looking for you for all the answers because you want to control everything. So you bring actually the way you are brings back what you're getting from your team. So I wasn't good at doing that. I didn't have the right leadership skills at an early age. For sure, when I think back of some great people that I've had that aren't here today, it was because of me. It was probably not because of them, right? It's the reflection of me and my leadership skills of what gave me the outcome back then, right? So now, with what I think the key is and what we're trying to do currently, I think we're doing a good job, right? We need to continue to get better, but like I know what I believe here is like for me to be successful and the business to be successful, we have to have a great team, a great culture, right? You got to have the right mindset, and we've got to be able to empower other people to do their job. So what I think I've gotten really good at is almost like taking, like I don't micromanage, I don't think anymore.
You're
And
looking
Amy-
at us
and
for
Amy-
validation.
and
You're
I'm
like,
looking at Amy,
you're
but
good.
but like I used to be like very this. I want it this way, and this is why and I think like now it's here's the outcome we're looking for, and then how you as long as you go do it in the right values, you're doing it the right way, meaning by our core values, right, and how we do business. Doesn't matter if you go left and I go right, as long as we get to the same destination, as long as we're doing it the right way. So that's something I had to learn. And so now it's like if you can clearly, set clear expectations, empower your team, and give them the outcome you're looking for, and you just find the right people to go get the outcome, and they'll feel more empowered to do it. They'll want to work for you. Like no one wants to be micromanaged or someone looking over your shoulder or wondering where you're at. And that's why I think today I'm way more flexible than I used to be. Like if someone needs to take a day off or whatever, it really doesn't matter as long as we're getting the outcome that we're looking for, I think is what's important. So developing my leadership skills, really starting to study self-development and investing in myself, getting around different people with different mindsets that's doing bigger things has changed my perspective on how I do things today, right? Because you gotta get around high level people to stretch you, to grow you. You can't stay where you're at and get to the next level. Like it just doesn't happen, right? So it's for me, it's always putting myself around people that are at a higher level than me, that are giving me feedback, so then I can then bring it back to to the team, right? And then changing the focus from me to you, right, in the company. And we've said it before. Again, are we doing exactly how we need to? No, but we're going to continue to work on it, which is, and we talked about it earlier, is making sure we help everyone in the company reach their personal, professional, and financial goals. Right? And that's probably not a lot of companies. Like I really care about everybody that works here. Like I truly do. But we need to understand what it is that they want, and then we need to help invest in them and help them get there. And if I can give you help you get what you need, I'm going to get what I need. I don't even think about me. Like, honestly, I don't. Like, we talked about it earlier. Like, I'm like, how do I, if you guys get what you need, the company will grow and you won't leave, hopefully, right? That's the thing, is like, if you empower people, give them flexibility, help them get better, why would you leave?
Right.
That's why we've got a lot of people on our team now, because they come from a corporate atmosphere, right? That's just not like that. So for me, the switch is, and I think, over the past maybe 2 or 3 years, is getting the right, it doesn't matter how good Jason is, because Jason can't do it all. If you got to have a great team. That's the only way you're going to win. You got to have a winning culture. You got to have the right people with the right mindsets, ones that are going to self-develop, that believe in the mission, and then you can build a great company, which I know we're just scratching the surface now, but like in 12 months, 24 months, we're going to be a whole nother company again, because we're going to continue to recreate. Like every day, every month, every year, we should become a different company. Everybody in the company should be a different person. They should be better if we're doing what we're supposed to do, giving them the tools setting proper expectations, communicating clearly, getting feedback, all these things that we need to get better at. This is the secret, in my opinion. Like the ones that I see doing crazy amount of business that are having fun doing it and their team loves them, like that's what they're doing. Like I'm seeing it now because I'm like in it, right? I see what they're doing that's different from 95% of the people. So I think investing in our team, culture, driving that home, helping you guys win, that's how we build a great company. And to be customer focused. Like if we outcare the competition, which I believe we do, then people are going to recognize that, even if we don't think they recognize it. And we talked about this the other week. So there are opportunities we get because people realize what we're really about, even though you don't know that they know that. Like people notice whether you think they do or not. Mm-hmm. Like even if they don't say anything, they notice when you're different. They notice when you care about the customer and the outcome, and when you take the hit, take it on the chin, you just keep moving. Like to me, if you outcare the competition, you're going to win.
Right.
That's like it's simple but not easy. Like I think what I said is simple. Build a team, empower, set clear expectations, make sure they win in the process, help them reach their personal, professional, financial goals, and outcare the competition. Mm-hmm. You're gonna win. Mm-hmm. You're gonna win, and you're gonna outdo most people. And that's right. So our goal now is like, how do we become the best, absolute best? There's not even a close race in the flooring industry. How do we dominate the competition?
Well, and I mean, to your point, I think it all starts with the people that you hire, right? Mm-hmm. And what does that process look like? And how well are you as the owner, me as as the leader, how good of a job are we doing at conceptualizing those goals down mm-hmm. and letting everyone know, like, hey, this is what my job is to give you a clear pathway to, if your goal is to make $150,000, like it's my job to conceptualize that for you. So it's not just like a pie in the sky, mm-hmm. right? If your goal is to someday buy a house, like, how can I take, my role as the COO of the company, how can I put things in place that, you winning and you doing your job can, help me grow as a leader, but at the same time push you forward to your goal? And can you see that pathway? And like the clearer that we can get doing those things, I think the more attractive our culture becomes mm-hmm. to people, right? Like I think on the Flooring Pro side of things, one of the best things that we have going for the company is I think we've done a really good job at hiring, mm-hmm. right? All of the people who work there have the same mindset. They have the same goal professionally, right? They're here because they can see the vision. Now, each individual has a different, smaller subset of goals. And then that's where, again, that's where my daily leadership comes into play. And, how do I develop more leaders underneath me so that they can pass those same types of things and same types of values on to people that they manage, mm-hmm. right? So, I think you're right when you say we're going to be a different company in 12 to 24 months. But at the end of the day, it all starts with, do we have the right people in place? Mm-hmm. And, that's harder. That's a mistake that everybody makes, right? Mm-hmm. In hiring people. Like I'm sure you've made bad hires in the past. I know when Tons. I've started my businesses, I've made terrible hires, mm-hmm. and in the moment it seems good, right?
Yeah.
But, valuing, I guess how do you value like somebody that you're looking to hire? Right?
Yeah, I love that question because this is just recent, right? This is probably in the last, I don't know, maybe 12 months, if that the focus has changed a little bit too, as far as the type of individuals we bring on, because hiring is difficult, right? They can have the nice resume and they can be trained on how to interview, but until they get into your world, you don't really know how they're going to perform. Mm-hmm. Right. So for me, what's more important now going forward is not about really like your skills need to be there, right? But we can train the right people. But I'm more interested in you as a person and what your life looks like, mm-hmm. right? We mm-hmm. talked about it yesterday. For example, I'm interested in, do you take care of your health? I want to know what you do personally. Like, do you go out and, party on the weekends? Not that there's anything wrong with it, but like, what do you do with your time? What's important to you? Do you have a family? Is that important to you? Are you taking care of your health? Do you have values? Do you have a mission? Like, to me, those are the things that matter, the kind of people that I want around me in a way, right? It's like, if, a lot of companies don't do this, and we're starting to do this now, is like, if you have kids, and we talked about it yesterday, and your kid's got a birthday, you should be spending time with your kid. We should make sure that we meet the spouse of anyone that we bring on, right? We really should, because there's no one going to perform at their highest level if they're not in good relationship with their spouse, period. Nobody talks about that. I'm asking that now because it's important to me that you guys and the entire team, like if you're married, right, that you're making sure that you put time aside to spend time with that person, because that's most important, not what we do, right? But that, right? Because if that falls apart, like, well, first of all, you're investing in yourself, right? Your health, your mindset, and all that, self-development. And then your partner, your spouse, like, that's got to be good, because if it's not, and you're trying to work different hours or doing something on the weekend like we all have to do, and your spouse is not aligned with the vision and what we're trying to achieve and what you're trying to achieve as a family, that's, I think, causes a lot of problems for companies, but also for relationships, because it's not easy. It's probably the hardest thing there is to do. It's why most people get divorced, right? It's because they're not aligned on where they're going. So I'm trying to focus now more on that, because I know how important it is to me. And if I'm not, like, if mine's not right, I'm not good. Like, most people can know if I'm off, right? And usually, like, there's a lot of factors in that. But if your home life is not in check, you're not going to be a high performer, period.
100%.
And so I want to help people. Well, if I can help people, not that I'm a counselor, but I do have a lot of experience. Okay, there's certain things that you need to make sure you're focusing on as a family, so that you do create that lifestyle, right? That we all know who each other, what each other's about. And it's aligned with what you're trying to do. Because if you're trying to work a bunch of hours or, weekends sometimes, and your partner's not on board with that, it makes it like, then you resent the company. It just doesn't work, right?
Well,
and it's a difficult thing.
Yeah, I mean, they're all pieces to the same pie, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if you think about it, family, work, and financial, if my house is getting foreclosed on, guess what? I'm not going to be doing the best work that I can be doing, right? If Jesse, my partner, is angry at me, then it's impossible not to carry that into my professional life.
For sure.
If I'm struggling professionally, then I got to work real hard not to bring that back into my into my family life, and at the same time, that's going to affect my financial life. So, really, like, looking at and that's one of the things that drew me to to work here is looking at all of that holistically. And obviously we're not ruling people out on any of those things. Like, I'm not asking people what your financial situation
Right.
look
Or you
like,
have to be married and have kids to work here. Like,
right?
it's
That's
not-
that's not what
Yeah.
that's not what
Right.
we're talking about. But do you have the desire to get all those pieces in place? Like, we can teach the skills, right? And I think that's what what it comes down to. I mean, we just hired a person for an account manager role. She's never been in one of these types of roles before, but she's got the intangibles of we can sharpen that spear as leaders. That's what our job is to do. And hopefully as we go through that, she catches a byproduct of being able to pass that down to the next line of people that we end up hiring, right? So I don't know. It's an interesting approach, and I don't think enough companies take it. And again, that's one of the main things that I try to pass on, and that you've really instilled into me, running this day to day.
I think that's been big in this company in general. I mean, I've been here 3 years now, and I had zero flooring experience, and I've seen the hires coming on, and a lot of them have zero flooring experience. But look at our procurement specialist now. Like, he's killing it. Like, I think, just to your point, the leadership, and you can learn those things as long as you have the right mindset and all of that. Then the rest is history. Easy.
Yeah, and a lot of times you hire for experience and you get a lot of bad habits. Like they've
That's
got 20
true.
years of experience and there's like 20 years of stuff you got to correct.
That's
Yep.
true.
Yep.
And it's like I'd rather have almost the person that's just got the hunger
You can mold it to.
and the right mindset, what we call the underdogs, and then build them up, and they'll be great leaders. And that's how we're going to grow. To your point, is like we have to develop other leaders within inside the company, and that's how we're going to be a large company. Because we won't be a large company if you're only having like one leader. So we have to develop more leaders within the.
Well, and it's something that you said, previously, like I can't do it all myself, right? And if I try to do it all myself, then, leading the day-to-day of this company, I can only take it as far as I'm able to go, right? But the better I am at, coaching people up and, empowering them to make their own decisions, I say this on every one of my interviews now is, my main metric, like, yeah, I'm supposed to grow the bottom line. I'm supposed to improve the operations. But my main metric is how many leaders can I produce? Because the more leaders that I produce, the further I'm able to extend myself. The further I'm able to extend myself, the higher the company's able to go. Right.
Yeah,
So
100%. Yeah. Well, and two, it's like I told Jamie yesterday, is I really truly want like people that come to work here to look back and say it was the best decision that I've ever made.
Yeah.
Because it changed their life in whatever way, right? Not just financially, but professionally, personally, and I think that's a separator between, like, I don't really know anybody else doing it, but that's focused more on the employee and their family and things like that, because I believe that's the missing piece. If you can tie all those together, then we have a lot of fun. Everybody grows and everybody makes money. I think that's it.
everybody's happy.
Everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess what advice would you have? And I've brought him up a couple of times on this podcast, but I imagine
Hey, Hayden.
my little brother. Hi, Hayden.
He's not here.
Who is that?
Brother.
But if he's young, he's hungry, and eventually he wants to start his own business, like what advice would you have to somebody just getting into the construction industry, or somebody looking to start their own business? Like what are the key pieces that you would point them in, or the direction you would point them in?
Yeah, so I'll say a couple of things. The first thing I'll say is I think there's 4 things that anyone needs to know to get anything in life you want. And that's number 1, if you're starting a business or anything, is knowing exactly what it is that you're wanting to do and how you're wanting to do it. So getting clear on that. Number 2 is making sure you're building the right relationships, because the more hands you shake, the more money you're going to make. Right? And then number 3 is developing your skill set, right? Your skills of whatever the thing is that you're trying to do. Communication, sales, leadership, like those are the things that are going to move you forward in life. And number 4 is taking action. So if you know what you want, you know the right people, and you have the right skills, you'll get anything in life you want. You don't need an education or money to do it, right? So that would be number 1. Number 2 would be what I know today that I didn't know when I was in my 20s, is understanding that you need who's around you, right? Instead of figuring out how, it's who, not how. So today I think of how or who. I don't think of how, really. I don't think of how that much, unless it's something I'm passionate about that I want to do. It's who can I put around me that has a skill set that I don't have, so that we can do the thing we're trying to do. So when you're starting out, there is a certain amount you have to do yourself, because you need to learn your business. But as soon as you can afford the first hire, which I would say there's 2 important. So if I was going to, in my 20s, and I was to do it again, as soon as I made enough money to pay my bills, the first hire I would have would be an executive assistant, period. Because you're dealing with a lot of admin stuff, tasks, things that you're probably not good at as an entrepreneur, right? Typically not. So you get that person in place, and then you find your right hand, your COO, that main person that can help take the vision that you have. If you're a true entrepreneur, your role is typically the visionary. Then you find the person to execute, the integrator in your business. So if you have an executive assistant, it takes all the admin stuff. You can focus on relationships, building that out, your vision, thinking creatively, because you can't think creatively if you're doing all the stuff. So that just hurts your growth. So as quick as you can hire the assistant, you free your time up, your creativity up, and then go find the guy that's better at doing the thing that you're doing, like you, the integrator, the executor, the thing that's going to create the vision, bring the vision to life. Like that's what I would do quicker. That's what I didn't do because I tried to do everything myself. And all it did at the time, you're thinking I'm doing it because I'm going to keep the money. It's the wrong mindset. You should take all the money that you have outside of your basic expenses and you should go find talent. That's how you're going to scale your time and your company. So that's what I would do if I had to do it over again, quicker.
That's insightful. I mean, like, again, like I look at businesses that I started and, some of the missteps that I made with that, right? I went out and I tried to find, people who could operate at my same caliber, right? As opposed to, taking inventory on, how much time am I spending filling out this credit application, or, how much time am I spending, filing these, right? So that's interesting.
And we all have those struggles, right? As entrepreneurs, we want to back down, right? We want to get back into the weeds and want to do the stuff, right? I mean, we that's sometimes can hurt us when we're running our own businesses, trying to do everything ourselves. And that's just like, you can have a good life, but if you want to grow and scale, you need to find the right people to surround yourself with that have the right values, that believe in your mission. And I think that's the thing too, is you have, as an entrepreneur, you got to be able to paint stories and paint pictures and tell stories, right? You got to be able to inspire people to want to come do the thing with you. If you can't do that, no one's going to come join you and run the race.
Yeah.
Right. So if you need to figure that out, right? You have to be able to sell the dream, and we should always be selling the dream on where we're going and what we're trying to do, because people want to get behind people like that. They don't want to get behind people that have no vision. You're not going to build a company that way. And if you think it's all about you, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
Right. As we all do typically starting out, because it's about us. And you just got to shift that mindset and focus on other people and your customer.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining us here today,
Absolutely.
Jason.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yes,
of course. I mean, feel free to stop by anytime. I know you will. Again, my name is Quentin Glenn. Amy Mareko, our guest today, Jason Watson. Thanks for joining us today on Building Insight.
Awesome.
Cut.
Cut.
Cut.